Welcome to BizTech's Women in Leadership Show. In conjunction with International Women's Day 2023, we bring you a Women in Leadership series where we connect you with some of the most successful female leaders in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, to uncover the tenacity of each woman leader and how they've pushed boundaries and have risen to the top of their respective professions. Now, our guest for today is Geraldine Kor. She's the Managing Director, South Asia and Country Managing Director for Singapore at Telstra. Telstra is one of Australia's leading telecommunications and technology companies with an international footprint spanning 20 countries. Now, Geraldine, welcome back to BizTech Asia.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks so much. Good to be back and great to see you again.
Now, to set the stage, Jerry, tell me about Telstra's business and what your role entails.
So Telstra is a leading telecommunications company. We're a part of the international business. So we support a lot of the digital connectivity needs to enterprises and companies across the region and as well as the globe. We own about a third of the submarine cables in Asia. We provide a whole lot of services that extends beyond our connectivity to across the cloud, cross security and modern workplace. So we've got a good portfolio of product and services to help companies go through and embark on their digital transformation journeys.
Now, Geraldine, you were last on BizTech Asia about 1.5 years ago. You were new at the job at the time. What's changed at Telstra during this past 1.5 years?
Wow, a lot has changed. Well, the first thing is that we are now all able to jump on the plane without having to do deep vaccination reports. So I would say, since then, as I shared in the last interview, I came in to really transform the business and sort of help us through this journey, both for our company as well as with our customers. And since then, we have been hard at work, really working and supporting the teams, just in terms of my team, managing them across the pandemic, getting people back into the office. So I'm really happy to say that, although we have got a flexible work arrangement in our organization, I've got many of my folks coming in almost 2 to 3 times a week, really getting engaged, getting plugged in with their colleagues. And that has been great in driving productivity, but as well as creating and bringing that sense of want into the organization. And that has helped to accelerate a lot of our programs in place, allow us to get to our customers faster. Second, I think being able to travel allow us to actually get back to our customers, having engagement. So it's been a really busy year last year, getting back on business travel, getting involved with customers on design workshops, but most importantly, also improving our product portfolio to ensure that we support our customers as they come out of the pandemic and as they went to sort of work through their strategy. And one of the things that has really resonated and has accelerated is around modern workplace, which is one of our key technology pillars. As organizations have been asking us to say, now that we move from 100% work from home to sort of hybrid work from home, to some organizations saying that, no, I expect all of our employees to work from home. How do we manage the expectations of their team, but also ensuring that we've got the right technology to provide the right level of support to employees, and ensuring as well that they've got the right security measures in place to ensure that as the elements of companies' products are being done over the cloud, how do they secure that data? So it's been quite a busy ride.
And I think, Jerry, this is a really key point that you just mentioned at the end, securing the cloud, securing themselves. Cybersecurity is now top of mind for business leaders. It's no longer a chief information security officer, a thought process, it's a boardroom process. How are people like you in Telstra helping your customers secure themselves better?
Well, given that we do a lot of connectivity for our customers, it's very natural that we look at security as the next adjacency on the services that we provide. So in the past, companies would choose just a pure, MPLS or direct network that secures point to point. These days, the amount of access through the internet, through SaaS applications, that also IoT devices, that also means that the exposure for the company is multiple fold. So one of the first things that we will do with organizations is to help them first to assess their security threat. So understanding where most of their data is lying, where are the exposure points, and give them an initial assessment to say that how and where are the potential dangers. So we start there with a security assessment. And then secondly, we would then work through to say that now that you've got the understanding of where the threats are, do you have the right partners in place to support you? And then with that, we then layer on the additional services and advisory work for them, and then help them determine, whether they should, actually work through security SD-WAN, as many of these organizations are deploying SD-WAN and going onto the internet, SASE, secure access, secure edge. These are the things that, we see a lot of traction with our customers.
Now, Geraldine, because you all are you're a telecommunication and infrastructure provider that customers lean on, one of the key things that's happening is in the data center space, there has been a move toward, especially in our region now, move away from centralized data centers out of places like Singapore into respective markets. I mean, part of that is driven obviously by legislation, because Singapore says, hey, we can't have any more data centers. Walk us through how you're working within your own strategies to serve your regional customers better in this area.
That's a great question. I know you're intimately close to this space, and data centers is close to our heart. And as you've rightly pointed out, Singapore, we're running out of space, running out of power. That has been really a real conundrum for us because, there is no lack of demand. We work with the world's leading, data center providers. Equinix is one of them that we partner closely with. And so literally, we have been in many cases over the last year where I've got customers saying that I need to move and have data center space, but we don't have options. So we work very closely with our partners such as Equinix, all the way from their regional offices all the way up to global, to work through and understand how do we support them across power and space. Looking at alternatives, for instance, they've announced that they'll set up Equinix data center in Johor Bahru. So that helps to bring proximity to companies as well, to say that if there's no space in Singapore, could we move, into a place that is a bit closer? We've also looked at other technology options where you don't need space. So we have something called a co-location solution, where we have something called Telstra Hybrid Cloud that allows organizations to actually be able to have virtual data center space, so that they do not need, just a physical space. It really depends. Certain organizations such as banks, they would require space, but other organizations such as in manufacturing, there is that flexibility to do so. So we're constantly scanning. In the end, we want to provide a portfolio for our customers to ensure that they have both space as well as power. And also, if you look at some of the regional countries, such as Philippines, there's a massive, massive demand for building out of data centers, because they're preparing, knowing that as customers start to go more and more digital, that demand is there. So we're sort of working through both, forward planning, but at the same time being able to understand options for our customers.
Now, Geraldine, moving on to what we are the focus of today's interview, International Women's Day. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how much progress has been made in terms of the way women are perceived in society, women's rights, and also issues like gender equality in the workplace.
Yeah, so I think I love this period, right? Because if you look at sort of February and March, that's when organizations and the whole community comes together to celebrate International Women's Day. And we've come a long way. I was actually at a panel yesterday, and there was a question that was posed by the panelists was, how long do we think we will get to gender equality? And there's been multiple reports that comes out ranging from 10 years, 50 years, to 300 years. And so
Wow.
the jury is out as to when do we think, we can get to gender equality, and how do you even define gender equality? I do think that, we have made multiple inroads across organizations, across our societies, in terms of giving a much fairer voice to women. And I think particularly in larger organizations, they've got established policies and metrics in place to really drive and further the equality. So I do think that, without naming numbers, because there's always a range, that this is probably the best time as we look into giving women an equal space on the stage, but still a lot that needs to be done.
And really, if you look at the tech sector, which tends to be a little bit more egalitarian than other sectors, and you being a woman leader is a case in point, how does the industry itself help to encourage our daughters to pursue tech as a career option?
Yeah, so I think, look, I came into tech quite accidentally. My first job was for an industrial company. Second company, I then went to work for Nokia. And then, as they say, the rest is history. I think as mothers trying to encourage children, first of all, they should really help them understand that tech is not only about STEM, it's not only about technical roles. Tech has a broad spectrum of functions that women can get really stuck in. And that's the wonderful thing about tech, is tech changes so rapidly. As you get into tech, it's a great platform for women to actually learn. And women by nature are quite agile. They're able to multitask. Tech gives them the platform to evolve as the tech evolves, right? If you think about how we've gone, 20 years ago, all about mobile, we talk about services. Now you're talking about ChatGPT, you're talking about AI. There is never a dull moment for tech. I think as parents, to encourage women to enter tech, is they should see it as a broader spectrum of opportunities. And it should not be seen that, if you want to be in tech, you need to be a computer coder. That's not true. There are so many ways you can get into the industry.
Now, I want to zoom in then on Telstra itself. What is Telstra doing to encourage diversity and inclusion across the spectrum of their businesses?
So we are super active in that space. As you know, we had a new CEO, Vicky Brady, who came on as our CEO in August last year. She's the first female CEO for Telstra. And that sends a very strong signal all the way from the top to say that, look, and Vicky has given multiple interviews on saying that she had never expected, as a young girl growing up in Australia, that she will one day become a CEO for the leading telco company in Australia. And I think that gives a lot of confidence to the women in the organization that, there is the ability, you are able to break the glass ceiling. But in terms of a couple of things that we're doing in Telstra is, for a very long time, we've really tried to encourage as many women to come in to join the organization. So we have a target of getting to 34% of women employees in Telstra, 40% in executive leadership positions. I would say consistently, as we're tracking the numbers, 34% is where we have been. I think we're at 34.2. In terms of executive leadership, we're still not quite there yet, but certainly there's an ambition for us to do so. In terms of recruitment, we have a matrix to ensure that 50% of all shortlisted applicants needs to be women. If you are not meeting that 50% mark, I will receive an email from the recruiter to say that, hey, look, there is a highlight that we're not getting enough women in the pipeline as we're interviewing them. So there's a couple of measures that we're putting in place to keep us in check. But as they say, it's not only about data, right? I mean, matrix is important for us to keep us measured on the goals. We've got a whole lot of other diversity mentoring programs that we've put in place to support the women in our workforce as well.
So one of the things, and sometimes we need to have a broader conversation around equity and diversity and inclusion. what are you doing in Telstra in terms of, again, because you have such a wide remote across the international businesses, to ensure, for example, that because you have this wide spectrum of countries, that the recruiting panel, for example, represents also greater diversity, not only from a gender diversity, but from an ethnic and from a nationality diversity?
Yes, spot on. So we ensure that as we work through our interview panels, there's always a woman that's on the panel. She would then be able to have a view that provides an understanding. So, I mean, although we are in a largely male-dominated industry, in a lot of our interview panels, we ensure that there is a woman there. Second of all, as well, is in terms of pay equality, right? So even if you were to bring the person on board, there's always been data points saying that women get paid less than men. We work very closely with our remuneration team, and they do an annual review to make sure that, you know, as they sort of track women's salary, that they are on par. And I'm quite happy to say that, you know, this is something that we have data to show that, you know, our women are being paid on par compared to men.
Now, Geraldine, I want to zoom in then on your role and traits as a female leader. Now that you've got a group CEO that's also a woman, do you think that from a leadership style-wise, Telstra is probably undergoing a little bit of a transformation? As you said, when you came on, you had to do a transformation as well.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, I think, and I think it's perfect timing. If you look at Telstra, as we have gone through, and I spoke about it in the last interview, we were transforming ourselves ahead of the curve, right? So it was widely publicized T22. We were looking at consolidating our assets, looking at, you know, taking out unnecessary costs, and looking at, you know, how do we make sure that we're well set up for the next 10, 20, 30 years. The mantra that we have now is called T25. So T25 is all about growth, and it's all about how do we grow in terms of our workforce, how do we grow as a business. And since Vicky coming on board, I would say that her softness and her communication style has been largely focused on how do we take an organization that has been so much focused on, you know, consolidation, to a space to say that now we're ready to grow. And when you want to grow as an organization, the most important thing is about our people and culture. Vicky is really focused on rebuilding that culture to ensure that, you know, we come together as one. And so therefore that diversity and inclusion is so important, because it's not only about women, it's about, you know, racial, it's about different ethnic diversity. And how do you harness the power of, you know, all the various talent that we have in the organization and set us up for growth? So I think we're certainly seeing the nuances. And Vicky is great. You know, I've met her several times one-on-one, and that softness in her, which, you know, I try to still learn from, right? It's how do you create that softness and the reassurance, but at the same time, the strength to propel the larger organization, you know, to the goals that she wants us to go towards.
Now, Geraldine, what do you think are the biggest challenges ahead for the next generation of female leaders? So it's probably the women who are now perhaps in their early 30s to mid 30s, who are coming up the ranks. What do you think the challenges that they are facing in terms of building their careers as they aspire to leadership roles that you have, for example?
Yeah, so I think in many ways, I would say they have it much better than us. If you think about some of the current senior leaders, we didn't have it easy, right? I think when we started, women who came into STEM, women who came into tech, you know, they had to largely deal with a large group of generally men, and they had to find their voice. They had to find their voice. They had to put up with, you know, stereotypes, and somehow this group of women fought through to trailblaze, for the younger women to say that you don't have to be afraid, because, you know, there's other women who have done it ahead of you. If you look at the younger generation, I think it's a very crowded space. And if you look at sort of millennials in general, they want to do things faster, right? And they want to have their cake, they want to have their cake and eat it. They want to do 3 side hustles aside from their day job.
Yes.
They want to have a greater impact to the world. So with that in mind, I would say that the opportunities are massive. However, having said that, because in our day and age where there's so much free information, there's so much, AI, that means that they need to pick very carefully on where they want to get their passion projects on. So I think my advice, to the younger generation is to stay focused on what they need to be doing, really to be able to pay it forward, because that's what the older generation has done, and to be able to build even greater momentum for the women that are coming ahead, the ones in the 10s and the 20s. And one of the things that we have seen in terms of studies has shown that although we have got, and there's still not enough women leaders, is the sandwich generation, the middle management, where there's still not enough women that is coming on board. So to your question earlier, is, what else could we be doing, is to be able to encourage greater volumes of women to join, for instance, the technology space, because there is a big space for them. And only if we get a big pipeline of women, you will see much more female leaders that will emerge as a result of that.
Now, Geraldine, on that note, thank you very much for coming on the show. And thank you for being just such a great guest.
Thanks so much, Brian. Always lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
We've been speaking to Geraldine Kor, the Managing Director, South Asia and Country Managing Director of Singapore at Telstra. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to BizTech's Women in Leadership show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.